Hi everyone, Einat Kessler here with a new video tutorial, and today we are making an explosion box mini album. This is a really fun and cool project, and I just want to say that you have a free downloadable file with all the measurements and the instructions in the video description below. Just click the link and then you can get that file to download. So you may know this project as an explosion box, but I've turned it into an explosion box mini album so you can fit lots of photos in there. So you have a 12 by 4 piece of paper, and we're going to score it at 4 and 8, and then we're going to do the same thing with another piece. This is a faster and a little bit different way to make the explosion box. You might know it in a different technique, but this is much easier and much faster and less cutting. So we're going to fold on all the fold lines, and I'm using Graphic 45 papers with a summer beach theme that is appropriate for this time of year, at least where I live. It's very hot and we really like spending time in the beach. So this is basically our box, and we're going to glue it together now. It's very simple. We're just going to apply some glue to one of the folded papers in the center, in the bottom of the center of the fold piece. We're going to apply some glue and then attach it to the center of the other folded piece. And now we have our box, basically. Now the secret to turn it into a mini album is basically adding pages inside. So we're going to have pages made, and these are the pages, and we're going to score them. They're 4 by 4.5, and we're going to score them at 4 inches. So basically we're going to do this with all the pages, and I'm using white cardstock to build the explosion box mini album, but you can go ahead and do that with pattern paper, of course pattern cardstock. You need it to be strong enough, but I'm just going to use a white cardstock and then cover it with cover papers. So this is the final piece that we're going to use as page for our mini album. So what we're going to do, we're going to fold all the fold lines that we made, and it's always a good idea to use a bone folder to really burnish those folds, because that would guarantee that it will be very easy to flip through the pages and the movement will be much smoother when the fold is really burnished and the crease is really strong. Now the final piece on both fold lines. Okay, so now we're ready to attach our pages to the mini album. So we're going to apply glue to the bottom of that little flap that we made. And I always like to use liquid glue for these projects because I can move the paper to its place before it dries. And we're going to align it to the left side of that center square. And of course we're going to align it with the bottom and the top as well of that square, so the page will sit exactly where it should. Then we're going to apply some glue to the next page, and we're going to align the fold with the end of the flap of the first page. So we're basically going to have space between the first page and the second page. And then we're just going to continue doing the same thing with all the other pages. We're going to align the fold of that little flap with the edge of the flap of the previous page that is already glued to the box, to the bottom of the box. So we're just going to continue doing that, attaching all the pages, and look how much more space you have now for adding photos and journaling, and you can go ahead and build interactive mechanisms on these pages and just go wild with it. So for the last page, we are going to be a little bit smarter because we want the last page to look like the first page and have that page be at the edge like the first page. But if we're going to use the same type of page, we're going to be missing one page. So we're going to use this guy here, which is basically two pages connected into one piece. And again, I just want to remind you that you have all the instructions and all the measurements in the free downloadable file that you have in the video description below. Just click the link and get all the measurements. So you have all the pages here ready, and all we need to do now is cover them. So this is all the cover papers that I cut in advance, and it's always a good idea to use a double-sided cardstock because then you get twice as many papers, because you can cut the same paper but it has two sides and each side has a different pattern, so that's fun. Less paper to use. And I'm going to start with covering the outside walls of the box, and again, always use liquid glue so you can move around, you can move the paper to its position. If you use double-sided tape, which is a dry glue, once you attach your paper to wherever it's supposed to be, you can't move it anymore. So if you need to align things or center things and you need them to be straight, if you can't move them around, that might be a problem. So that's why I like using liquid glue, because it has a few minutes before it dries, a few seconds, and then I can wiggle the paper and move it in to where I want it to be. So I'm using the same pattern for all the four walls, the outside walls of the box. And then I'm just going to flip it over and start covering the inside of the box. Going to go for the inside walls first, and I think I am going to change the pattern. So I'm going to get two patterns on opposite sides and then two other patterns on the other opposite sides, just to make it a little bit more interesting and fun. I love this paper collection by Graphic 45, Sunkissed Collection. That's the name if you want to use the same thing. So I'm going to attach that final piece, and for the pages, again, I'm going to cover them with cover papers, but you can go ahead and cut photos to the same size and attach photos to some of the papers or all of the papers, whatever you want to build your mini album. And of course, you can do what I did and just cover them with cover papers, with pattern papers. You can just mix it and see. You can cover the pages with cover papers and make smaller photos, not the size of the entire page. You can play around. You can add interactive mechanisms, pockets and flaps to this mini album, to the pages, so it can be even more fun to look at, to go through all the pages. So I'm just going to cover all the pages in the mini album, play with all the patterns in the collection, make it really fun and colorful. You can see that the cover papers are slightly smaller than the pages, so that leaves a nice white frame around each of the pages. Again, I want to remind you, you have all the measurements and the instructions in the link in the description under the video. Just click the link and get it. It's free. Okay, so that's the last page. And then we'll be ready to make the lid for this box. Okay, so now all my pages are ready. Look at that, isn't that fun? Great. So now we're going to bring the lid piece and we're going to score it at 1 inch on all 4 sides. Again, the last time, I'm reminding you, you can have all the measurements and cutting guide and instructions in the link in the video description. So we're going to score that and then fold on all 4 sides. And this is very important to use a bone folder or your fingers or something to burnish the folds. Now we're going to bring scissors and then just going to make sure it fits. Yep, it fits great. We're going to cut from the edge to the fold line on one side of the corner and then cut diagonally. That will give us a really nice finish when we assemble the lid. We're going to do that on all 4 corners. And then before we assemble the lid, we need to cover it because after it's folded, it's a little bit harder to attach the cover papers. So I like to do this before. And I'm going to cover only the outside of the lid, but if you want to cover the inside as well, simply cut 2 of each of the paper pieces. So you have 1 piece for the top and then 4 strips for all the 4 sides. So if you want to cover the inside, you would need 2 pieces, 1 for the top and 1 for the inside, and then 8 strips of paper for both sides of each of the walls of the lid. Okay, so the last piece. And once we have that covered, we can go ahead and close our lid. And what we're going to do is apply glue to that little tab and glue it to the inside of the adjacent wall. We're going to do that with all 4 sides, and then we're going to have a lid. Very, very simple. You might need to hold it a little bit until the glue dries so the lid won't fall apart, but it's really dries really quickly, so you won't have a problem there. And then all you need to do is close the lid and close your box, and that project is ready. So I really hope you like this project, and if you liked it, please subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the little bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video. So we're closing this and our project is done. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Let's see that box one last time. I love this effect. So this is our mini album with all the pages. Again, thank you very much for joining me. I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.